podcast. As you notice, I got glasses too, so it's exciting. So Ian is the sales training manager for the department over all of DishOne Sales. He works closely with Chris Malink and Dylan Davis and a lot of those guys over there that we've also heard from.
Yep.
So super excited to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm humbled to be included.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, dude, we got to learn from the greats. You also have the nickname Primetime. I love it. So we'll talk a little bit about that for a minute. So your story, tell me how you kind of got started in door-to-door and what's your story?
So I've been doing door-to-door for about 9 years now. I actually started right after I got back from my mission. Tegan Judd is one of the regionals at DishOne. He actually recruited me out of the gym locker room. Just pulled the normal, do I know you from somewhere?
The go-to. You look like you'd be a good sales rep. Do I know you?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. You just look like you've done like security and door-to-door before. And at the time I knew what door-to-door was, but it wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. So I was just like, yeah, I have no idea. And he's like, all right, I never do this, but will you just wait until I'm getting off right now, and I just want to talk to you for a minute. I was like, whatever, fine. Hook, line, and sinker got me there, right? So anyway, I actually decided though my first year I only went out for a month because I was still kind of skeptical about it. My dad did door-to-door sales for like 12, 13 years. He sold life insurance and magazines and everything else you can think of. Anyway, so I was kind of skeptical about it, but I still wanted to try it out. So I went out for a month, and I just picked it up quick, man, and never looked back. And so
tell us about your first day. How did it go?
So my first day, I shadowed my trainer for about it was like half an hour, 45 minutes. He actually got a couple quick sales. It was pretty impressive, and then I was like, okay, I think I got this. And I went off on my own, and I got to my first door, and I knew nothing about TV, nothing. I actually remember sitting down with Tegan and Mark Cram, who's one of the VPs of the company and owners of the company. And at the time, I remember sitting down at Applebee's in Rexburg, and all I cared about was money. I was just like, how much am I going to make? Just tell me how much I'm going to make. I don't care about all the details. Just tell me how much
show
money
me the money.
That's it. Just show me the money, right?
You pull out their back ends, you're like, sold, got it.
Yeah, dude. And I remember him saying okay, well, it depends if you sell DVR and HD. And again, I grew up without TV. My family didn't have it, so I'm like, DVR, are we selling DVD players too? I had no idea what he was talking about. But anyway, so I got to my first door, and I was just they answered the door, and I was like, I didn't have a pitch, but I just basically was like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first day. I just watched this guy save people a ton of money. I can probably do it for you too. Just give me 5 minutes and give me some practice, and if it doesn't work, great, I got practice. If not, then I'll actually be able to help you out. And so I was confident, and that's definitely what may happen. But I sold them, and then they actually referred me to their neighbor, and I sold them, and then I went to the third door and sold them, and so I sold 3 in my first day, and it was the end of the day, and I came back, and obviously everybody was just like, what the freak?
You're an immediate addict.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I was hooked. And so from then on, I kept going, and I did 60 my first month, and that's when I was just like, okay, I got this. I'll come back for a full summer next summer, and we'll tear it up.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about some of your failures, maybe, that obviously you started out strong. Not every sales rep started out strong. You've obviously been in the training department for a while, and we'll go into that in a minute.
Okay.
But through the sales journey that your first years, how many years have you been in this?
Going on 9.
9 years. So you had kind of this long journey so far, and obviously keep cranking. But tell me about some of the failures that you had, and then we'll kind of go into some of the successes that you've had over those 9 years.
So, failures. Honestly, when I was knocking full time, the failure that I had, I guess, that I've always looked back on throughout my career is I was never number one rep. I never. I always ended up selling 300 accounts every summer. I always ended up in the top 3, whether I was number 2 or number 3. But because I was only, when I train, I teach everybody. And you guys have probably all heard this, but you know, if you picture sales as a stool, there's 3 legs. You have the mindset, you have sales skills, and then you have work ethic. And without all 3, obviously it topples over, right? And so every time I train, I try to ingrain in these guys' mind that, you know, you can be very talented and you can have a super like clear mindset and be positive all the time and everything, but at the end of the day, if you don't actually match that with the work ethic, and I'm not just talking about work ethic on the doors, I'm talking about off the doors, like everything, you're never going to end up as number 1. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way. And even though back in the day, honestly, it wasn't something that was important to me. I've learned now that, you know, I do regret not doing that at least once, because I know I could have. But
and it's funny looking back. It's like, how many people always say like, man, I know I could have, and it's almost like you're like, man, you had multiple opportunities and you finished number 2 and 3 every year.
Yeah.
It's like,
And at the same time too, it's kind of hard to say I could have, because dude, the fact of the matter, and this is what I tell guys, like I'll never know what I could have done. I'll never know what I actually could have accomplished, because I never paid the price to do it.
So we were talking about earlier, one summer you're 65 accounts in July, right?
Yeah.
Ahead of anybody else in the company.
Yeah.
Tell us about that moment.
So it was I think it was 2013. I can't remember the exact year. It was my 3rd year selling. So yeah, it must have been 12 or 13. Anyway, so I was cruising. It was actually like the end of June, and I was like 65 ahead of everyone, and there was no way anybody was passing me. And at the time, I was dating a girl pretty seriously. We'd been dating for like a year, and it got to a point where, you know, she was actually like, I was waiting patiently, but she actually came out and said, okay, I'm ready to get married, like propose to me anytime kind of thing, right? And I was like, all right, like
easy sale,
there's that why, right? Got that final sale. So it was like, there's the why. And so I had more than myself to work for, because the bottom line is the reason that I slacked off, so to say, back in the day is just because like I didn't care as much. Like I was fine making a ton of money and selling the accounts I did and working 3 or 4 hours a day. And as lazy as that sounds, like I just didn't have that why. You know what I mean? For me, it was just, my why was just, I can be successful this way and I can make a lot of money and I can live my life the way I want. And so I just did it. But then everything changed when I was dating this girl, and because now it was like, okay, I want to put us in an awesome place. I want to have a future for us. And so I started working more hours, and I was cruising. I was killing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she actually was on a study abroad. She came back. I had her come out, and dude, I proposed, like just like she asked. I proposed, and she said no.
Wow.
I was one of those guys.
It's like one of those like, hey, we're looking for satellite. Oh, we've been wanting to switch, and then like
actually, never mind.
Oh, well, we want to shop around.
Yeah, like I can't even describe how I felt at the time. I was just like, what?
That's rough.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then, you know, a few days later, I found out she's actually like basically cheating on me with someone else. And dude, it was just, yeah, it was a train wreck. It's amazing how we were together forever, and I still didn't know of half the things that were going on in her head. Anyway, so long story short, I went into this like deep hole of turmoil and depression, and I stopped selling for like 3.5 weeks, I think, something like that. It was bad. And then I finally just kind of said to myself, I was just like, this is stupid. Like, you can either just be pissed off at the world and hate life and continue to live as a hermit in your room, or just get up and, get going again. And so
what? Because at the end of the day, how many guys have you trained, managed, seen that really go through that? They have a life-changing kind of roadblock, whether it's a parent got sick, died, a girlfriend dumped them midsummer, whatever, family issue, and you just literally see their cells go, and it's like...
And they don't come back.
Yeah, and they don't. Some of them never recover. So what did you do to like shift your mindset to go, okay, I need to get back on the freaking wagon and go?
So I don't know, it'll get kind of personal, but growing up, my mom and dad were actually divorced when I was about 3. And my mom actually suffers from paranoid schizophrenia. I haven't talked to her for a long time. My stepmom came into play when I was about 6 or 7, and she's kind of picked up the ball where my mom dropped it. So I think going through, I didn't even think about this when we were talking before, but I think going through that struggle actually I've been through a lot in my life, but I've still been able to just kind of pick it up and say like, hey, that sucked, but why dwell on it? Because it's not going to get anybody anywhere, you know what I mean? And nobody's coming to the rescue for me except for myself. And so, especially then, I just got to a point where I was like, okay, I can either leave and like not finish out the summer and continue to, let this affect me, or I can just say, F it, like, let's just get up and go. And so I think the thing that motivated me the most was just that I'd never been a quitter in my life. And so I was just like, dude, there's no way that I'm just going to stop. And so I just said, hey, like, I come to Jesus, went to the temple a few times, kind of got my shoes back on and just went out again and did my thing. And I ended up being in the top 3 again, and I came back, but man, that was a hard summer.
That's crazy.
That was a hard one.
Yeah, and I think speaking to all those people that may be going through a hard summer right now, it's kind of like, stop playing the victim. Like, stop playing like, oh, my manager should be reaching out more to me because I'm going through a hard time right now. Yep. Or my whatever, right? Like, why me? And it's like, you had 3 weeks of that. Yeah. And you're like, maybe that was needed. And you needed to process it. I'm sure it was a processing stage, but the fact of the matter is, when you go through a hard time in summer, it's so important to say, okay, I'm going to take 3 days, process it, let it soak in.
3 weeks in my case.
Yeah, and yours is 3 weeks. I wouldn't recommend 3 weeks.
No, I wouldn't recommend 3 weeks.
Going back doing it again, you probably would be like a week, maybe 3 days.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I dealt with it.
Yeah.
But that's life. Yeah. Move on.
Yeah.
And I got to go freaking be a bad A again.
Yep.
So that's a huge key I want to touch on this. But now, kind of, what are some of your big success moments in your career? Where do you feel like you're like, man, this was like the biggest day, month, year that you're like, I felt like I impacted, I did something amazing?
Man, that's kind of. So, I had a lot of days where I would throw down a lot of counts, and obviously those are good days and things. My best month ever, I did 56, or my best week, I did 56 accounts in a week, and that was a big turning point for me. That was I believe that was my second or third summer. I think that was actually my third summer before all this happened. And that kind of, it's like, I think everybody has that experience during their sales career where they just have one huge week or one huge month or something, and it just kind of turns the corner and it just expands your mind, and you're like, oh wow, okay, this is what I'm actually capable of, But to be honest, as you asked that question, I think the majority of my like big success moments have actually come now, in the last 2 years. Doing
more training and seeing shifts in offices.
Doing what I really love and what I'm passionate about. Seeing, I mean, you probably know this, like you've trained. Anybody that's trained and taught and inspired, there's no better feeling or experience than getting that text message from the guy that you just knocked with and him saying, dude, I did what you told me and it worked. And I just finished I just had the best day I've ever had. Or an entire office just like blowing it up and like just killing it and coming back and saying like, what did we just do? Like, and it's amazing because it's, it's like, I didn't do that. They did it. But
had I not stepped in and said, tweak this, fix this, do this, follow this structure.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden it's like,
ding! Yeah, it's seeing all of your experience. It's being able to use that experience to help others grow. Like, I know that sounds really cliche.
No, but it's it's
the truth. That's the ultimate fulfillment.
Yes, that's fulfillment, is impacting others and serving.
Yeah.
So that was probably a weird transition in your career. Kind of tell us about that. So like, obviously going from bad A sales rep, top 3 in the company every year, to I'm going to take a salary and build out this training department that doesn't even exist. Hey, CEO of Dish, let me do this. Like, tell us about this whole journey.
So after I managed for 1 year, I learned very quickly that managing was not for me. Not because I didn't like to motivate and inspire and all that kind of stuff, but just like the menial tasks, like, this is just not me. You know what I mean? Like,
well, there's power in saying, this is my genius, this is what I'm really good at.
Yeah.
Let me keep mastering my strength, what I'm really good at.
For sure. And like, so when I came off that summer managing, I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I love training. Like, I'm not nearly as passionate about selling as I am about teaching. And I know that rather than sell 300 accounts, I can go teach 300 reps how to sell 300 accounts. times. And so coming to that realization, I basically talked to Tegan, who is now actually my regional, and he started just kind of paying me freelance to go to offices and train. And so I started going to all the offices and training guys, and again, seeing those experiences that we talked about and getting that fulfillment. And so I was like, man, this is awesome. And it wasn't that DishOne didn't have a training department. We've always had a training department, but it was definitely just kind of every year it changed, and it was just kind of I didn't feel like there was a super solid foundation, and I felt, just to be honest, I felt like I had figured out that foundation. And so I actually met with a couple of the owners, and I just said, like, hey, this is what I want to do. And their bottom line was, look, you know, in order to make that happen, like, you need to turn heads. You need to do something that actually makes that stand out, so that people say, okay, now there's a need, you know, bring that value, and then we can negotiate. And so I was like, okay. So I went out and I started training offices, and I started creating my own systems. I started doing PowerPoints, and I started building out these actual training workshops, and like really organized trainings, and I focused more on, you know, I feel like if you guys have been through a lot of trainings, you've probably seen a lot of training programs will focus on the what. You know, this is what you do and this is what you say. But very, very few of them focus on, this is how you do it, this is how you say it, and this is why you're doing it, and this is exactly why you're saying it. And so I built my training program around that. Like, because at the end of the day, if you know, people say it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it. And that's true to some point, but what you say actually has a huge impact as well. You just need to understand what and why and how, not just one of them.
It goes back to the principle of the golden circle.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen that TED Talks where it says start with why, then how,
yeah.
and then what.
Yes.
It's huge.
So I started doing that, and then I created evaluation forms. I just made up like a 10-question questionnaire, and I gave it to all the reps that I trained, and I gave it to the leaders that I trained and stuff, and then I just started emailing those out to the CEO, and emailing them to the leaders, and
the feedback was always
amazing.
So one thing that we talked about a little earlier is you would go in and you would look at their dashboard saying, here's your last 2 weeks of production.
Yeah.
You would then show up to the office, implement your system,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would track the following 2 weeks of production.
Yes.
And what was kind of the result there?
It was crazy. Like, the reps that I knocked with saw immediate increases in their sales, and they doubled their sales in the next 2 weeks. The offices doubled their sales. The metrics went up, the completion percentage changed, and so this was it. To be honest, I didn't know that I could actually do all that. Like, it was more of just like I need to go improve myself, but not only improve myself, prove to myself that this is actually something I'm capable of. And so when I started to see these things, I was like, maybe
there's some value.
Maybe I'm onto something here. Yeah. Like, okay, this is working.
It's worth something.
This is working.
Double production.
Right, let's figure it out.
Like,
yeah. So
cool.
I put together this binder, and I laminated all the, you know, the printouts of these office numbers, and I highlighted all the increase and stuff, and then I went in and I showed it to the owners, and I said, look, like, I'm changing things. Like, if we can do this on a company level, we are going to see a change. And so, yeah, I got to a point where they're like, okay, let's give it a shot.
So let's dive into the how, right? So the why was simply everybody wants to sell more, everybody wants to make more, every company wants to grow, retain their reps because they're selling more.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of I just want to dive into, okay, you said 10 questions on this evaluation form. What are some of those questions that you wrote on the evaluation?
That's a good question. Man, I wish I brought them with me.
Yeah, it's like, maybe I'll post it on Can't Knock This.
Actually, I think I have them in my backpack.
Cool.
But
no, it's not in there.
It's not in there, yeah.
I was like, all right.
Let me think. So I think it was just things like, I tried to ask questions that weren't like generic. So I'll tell you some of the ones I know I remember. One of them was, like, I would ask them to actually give feedback. Like, what is something that you took away from the specific training that he did, but not just like a principle? Like, what is something that you'll be able to apply personally to your own sales that will change the way you sell? Or something like, I also said, it was ratings, like on a scale of 1 to 5, like how, man, I wish I actually had that thing. There are so many.
I'll upload it to when I post the podcast.
Yeah, that would be good.
Just upload it.
Yeah, because I can't remember all of them, but I just really tried to dig deep. Like, I tried to get people to open up and say, like, this guy isn't just coming in to motivate us. Like, he's coming in to actually change the way we're selling. He's coming in to change our summers, to reinvent the way that we're doing things, so that from this point on, it doubles, it changes. Like it literally is, we're going to see an increase, and not only an increase, but they're going to stick. Like my other goal was, if I can get these guys to sell, if I can get them to produce and have awesome summers, it's going to work for the managers too. All the managers and regionals are going to be happy with it because they're not going to leave them.
Yep.
Because they're going to stay successful, and at the end of the summer, they're not going to renegotiate because they had an awesome summer.
Yeah.
So it was like, how can I make all of this work for everyone? Because, you know, obviously with everything we do, it's personal gain. Like we definitely want to have personal success, right? But I think anybody that knows me at DishOne will be able to say, like, one thing that about me is that I actually am super passionate about DishOne. I love DishOne. Like, there's a reason that I'm there for 9 years, you know? Being able to watch it grow as I've been there and to help it grow now is just, that's the ultimate fulfillment, right? Seeing those different experiences. And so let's dive into, you show up to an office, you're like, I'm the trainer, here I am, minds are gonna be blown. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you do systematically that people could maybe listen to this podcast, a manager, a trainer, a regional, they're going into an office, they want some kind of nugget that they can follow. Like what program or what system would you do, whether it's in a meeting or training a rep, one of the two? Yeah. So the first thing I did every time was I got in contact with, and I still do it, I get in contact with the managers first. Whether that's over the phone or I take them to dinner the day that I get there or something like that after they knock or whatever, and I just ask them, like, I just kind of try to figure out who they're, like, the office has an identity. Every office has a different identity. Something 100%. About that office is different. And so I always try to figure out that identity. You know, it's just like when you're selling, you need to understand who your customer is. And so it was like, I got to figure out who this office is, not what this office is, who they are. Like, what's different about them? What are they struggling with? What are they strong with? You know, I'm also the kind of person too where it's been said every once in a while I can push people's buttons, but I feel like I'm pretty good at pushing buttons without totally pissing people off. And so that was also kind of what I'm trying to figure out, is like, how far can I push these guys where I'm not pissing them off, but I light just enough fire to get them just motivated, you know, to go out and throw down. And so that's the first thing I do, is just try to figure out where they're at, ask the managers, what do you want to cover? They'll tell me what they want to cover, and I'll say, okay, I think we should do this, or I actually think we should do this based on what you're saying, you know what I mean? And then the next day we'll just do core, and so I'll usually have them meet up a little bit earlier than usual so we can have a longer core. There's been times when my trainings have gone 4 hours, long time. And what's crazy is that the majority of the time I actually am like not boring people. And that was another thing too for me, that when I saw that I was like, okay, well,
they're still engaged.
3
hours later, they're still on this.
You know, and a lot of it's
hey, kid in the back, get off the iPad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to train here.
And a lot of it's hand-on too, so like I get people engaged, you know. Anyway, so I just basically like dissect what they need, and what I tried to do every time I went and trained is I tried to train on sales training, and I tried to train on mindset. So I taught something about sales training, and then I always ended with something about the mindset, something about staying positive, you know, not being desperate, you know, being the needed instead of the needy on the doors, understanding your why, just all those different things that we know. But I would try to do one principle in a really impactful way so that they're ready to go and slam on doors. So one of those questions actually was, would you say that at the end of this training you feel more motivated on a scale of 1 to 5 to go knock doors? And like, if I knew that if I could get people in the front row that I'm training to say, dude, I don't want to train, like, I'm ready to knock, let's go.
Is this over yet?
Seriously, and I would hear it all the time. So I'm like, dude, what more does a manager want than to hear their reps just say, I want to go knock, like, I'm ready to go, let's just get out there.
Yeah.
So that was the ultimate goal, I think.
So let's dive into, okay, you spent a topic on motivation at the end, but my question would be, what are some key nuggets that you love training on in that correlation that you found most beneficial in each office?
That's a good question. There's a lot.
If you had to pick one or two.
So I'll just tell you what I've been focusing a lot on this year.
Okay.
I've focused a ton on positivity, but a different take on it. So every time we hear about positivity and you read about positivity in books and stuff, they're always talking about this is how you stay positive. This is what you do to be positive, right? But how many people actually take it the other way and say, in order to be positive, you need to eliminate the negativity, and these are the things that cause negativity, and this is the way that you eliminate it. So what I've actually been focusing a ton on this summer is helping people understand that, and maybe this is just like Ian Wendt doctrine or whatever, right?
Love it, dude.
I don't know if this is patented.
This is why the podcast is Ian Wendt doctrine.
I tell everybody that stress is the number one leading factor in negativity. Stress causes a feeling of desperation, and when you're desperate, you can't perform. Like, you just can't. Some people work better under stress, but I feel like it's few and far between.
Yeah, it's 20% work better, 80% don't.
Yeah, and so what I try to help people understand is all the things that you do that make yourself, it's really in your thoughts, right? Every time a rep goes out and they think, I always ask, when I'm in an office, I always say, who sold the most yesterday? And the guy raises a hand. Okay, who in here bageled? Who in here got nothing? And I'm not calling you out, I just want to prove a point. And they'll say, oh, it was me. I'll say, okay, how many times would you say yesterday you thought the words, I got to, I want to, I need to, if I don't, I can't, I have to? And they're like, oh, I can't even count. And I'll be like, okay, the guy that threw down 8 yesterday, how many times did you think that? He's like, not once. Like, it's just constant, I'm going to, I will. The best salesmen know they're going to sell, they just don't know when, you know what I mean? And so it's helping these guys understand that you need to eliminate those feelings of desperation, and you really, that's why this job is so mental. I try to like, door to door is not physically tough. If it's physically tough, you're doing something wrong. Like, you should be sitting on couches.
I rode a scooter because I thought it was physically tough. I was like, this is hard. I'm hot. I need to get a scooter.
That's so funny. So I guess we need to start teaching them to ride scooters.
I'm just messing. But for real though, I was like, there's got to be a better way to maintain my high energy peak.
I guess that's the way I look at it though. I'm just like, but if you really think about it, like physically,
it's not hard.
No, I mean go do construction or sheetrocking or something. That's physical. You're just emotionally and mentally exhausted, and when I tell people, I'm like, that I understand. If you're coming to me with like like you're hot, drink water. Yeah. Like, if you're cold in the winter, go put a jacket on. Like, I have no sympathy physically wise at all. Mentally and emotionally, I have all the sympathy in the world, because we all know, like, that's why this industry is so hard. And so everybody's wondering, like, why? Well, it's because you literally have to control the way you think and are. And so I talk a lot about how, even in today's society, like, all of us are social media. We're all using social media. Do you use Snapchat?
I don't, actually.
So I use Snapchat a lot. Everybody knows that. There's probably a bunch of reps of DishOne right now laughing a ton because I snap all the time. But one thing I've noticed, just as an example, is that if you have a little like Bitmoji, so it's your little cartoon dude, every day there's a different theme, and it's always like Monday there's an anvil on his head. Tuesday looks like a zombie. Wednesday is on the camel's back. And then Thursday you're driving towards the finish line. Friday you're breaking through the finish line. Saturday. And then you get on Facebook, and what do you see? You see nothing but guys that are like memes that, getting through the week like this, making it to Friday like this, right? Getting to or going through Monday like this, and it's all this negativity. And it's like our world is just hammering into our brains that from Monday to Thursday it's garbage, and then the weekend is like the finish line. And it's like, the best part about this industry, the thing I love the most, is that if there's one thing I've taken away from it, the biggest thing, it's the ability to say, everybody says tomorrow's a new day, today sucked. F that, today's a new day. Like, just change your mind. Just, as stupid and as cliche as it sounds, just literally stop thinking negative thoughts and just say, today's going to be good. You know what I mean? And it sounds like every motivational guru out there, but there's a reason they're saying it, because it works. And so
that's cool.
I think that's probably one of the main things that I've focused on a lot with offices. If I can just get them to understand, reset.
And put it this way, how many managers get trapped in the mode of the what to say? Does that make sense? Meaning, every correlation is on better closing tactic, better door approach, and it's like, they should flip-flop that.
Yeah.
It should be more, how do I freaking train your brain to wake up and reset and manage the objection and manage the hardship of getting out on the first door. Like, that piece is so under-trained on.
Agreed.
That's one of the struggles that managers have.
Yeah.
So let's dive into, we talked a little bit before this about your unique door approach that you feel like is the Ian Wendt approach that, you know, and it's kind of funny because you've sold from alarms to other things door to door, and you're like, I just used the same pitch and it worked. Like, I sold how many alarms your first day?
Just 3.
3 your first day, 3 salad first day. Like, it's all the same thing. Yeah. So what is this magic sauce that everybody always asks that is in this door approach of yours?
So it seems kind of complicated when I first tell it, but you want me to just do it?
Yeah, just do it. Hit me. I'm your customer. Knock on my door.
Do role play. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just knock and.
Hey, can I help you?
Yeah, I'll say, hey, just real quick. I'm out here doing a bunch of work with all the direct TV and cable customers, or in security, I would say, I'm just out here doing a bunch of work with all the security companies, right? And they'll say, and I'll just say, you probably have one of those, right? And they'll say, yeah, we have whatever. Okay, perfect. So. Look, the only reason that I'm actually still out here in the heat is just a ton of people have been calling, complaining. They're actually even canceling sometimes simply because their bill is a lot higher now than it was when they first got it. Because in the TV world, everybody understands that promotions only last a certain amount of time, and so you need to find the problem, right? And that's a universal problem. Everybody's going to agree. So when I say that, everybody's like, oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so, and then I'll just, you know, to go into a satellite pitch, so you probably have 2 or 3 TVs, right?
Yeah, 2.
Okay, and you probably have the internet, phone, and TV all bundled together in one. Is that right?
Yeah, it's all.
That's kind of what I see with everybody else. Okay, so triple bundle and 3 TVs. Your bill's probably like what, 167, 173, somewhere in there. And I'm under quoting.
No, it's like 220.
You're what?
Yeah, I mean, internet, phone, TV, all of that.
It's over $200.
Yeah.
How long have you been paying that?
Like. A year? 2 years? They used to be like 60.
Dude, you've got to be kidding. Check this out, okay? You know what though? Actually, before I do that, do you know what receiver you got when you first got your service set up? Do you have a dog that's gonna like rip my face off if I just look at it real quick?
No. So you kind of lure them in. Check this out.
So it's a hook.
I like that.
So it's a come look at this. So this is the way I teach my reps. I say, look, I created a problem.
Yeah.
Let me show you the solution. But before I show you the solution, I need to look at your box. Because the thing is, the key to getting in a
same
house...
thing with the takeover and alarm.
Yeah,
same thing with, like,
I did the exact same thing with
solar.
alarm.
It's like, let me check your meter. Before I look at this, what's your bill? Like, let me look at your bill. I mean, it could be the easiest transition at that point, because it's like, hey, check this out. I mean, well, before I really get into it, because they already know the problem. Yeah. They want to hear a solution.
Yes.
You don't give it to them right off because you know you want a transition.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
So that's kind of what I do. I teach everybody, look, a salesman is a problem solver. Figure out what the problem is that everybody has. So with security, for example, the biggest thing that I studied Vivint for 1 day. I watched your video, and Jordan Williams, shout out to you. I haven't never met you, but you're stud. Freaking stud, dude. So I watched his video and your video like 6 times. Practice what I preach, right? Just soak those up all morning long, and then I went out and the thing I noticed about Vivint, that I love about Vivint, is that the technology, it's unreal. Like, it's amazing. The ability to control your house on your phone. And I just realized that a lot of other security companies didn't have that. So when I knocked on the door and I saw another sign, I figured they didn't have it. And so that's got to be a problem, right? So that was what I identified. Like, hey, a lot of people are just upset because they don't have the ability to like access their security system on their phone. You probably know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So when you got it, did they not give that to you? No. Really? Well, I'll tell you what, let me show you this really quick, because you're going to love this. Oh, but the panel that you have, is it the one with the rubber buttons? Do you have a dog? Same thing.
Yeah, is there a dog going to rip my face off?
Figure out a way.
And then they start thinking, no,
it's
I don't
a
have a dog. Yeah, it's a redirect.
They're not.
Piece, like, it's so funny, because a lot of people that are listening to this, they didn't catch the dog ripped the face off line. It's actually very, like, redirect to think about dog, now I'm inside.
Do you know how many people have told me that it's stupid? There's actually a lot of people that have said, like, that's a dumb line, we don't need to include it.
No, it's so key.
It's so key.
But that's why I'm like, I catch that stuff. Yeah. I'm like, no, the dog line was like the piece that is very critical in that, because all of a sudden they're, look at this, they're like, focused on this, look at dog, and now they're lost. Yeah, they're oh, I'm not thinking about TV that I was watching, I'm not thinking about dinner I'm cooking, they're thinking, look, what's he about to show me? Oh, I don't have a dog? Oh, what do you need? Yeah. Okay, it's just moving their brain sometimes in a door approach, because you now just gained control. Because what happens a lot of times is door sales guys will knock on a door and they'll blabber on and they'll throw up, and they never gain control over the guy's mind. They never gain authority, I guess you could say.
Yes.
So that's key for anyone listening to this. don't leave out the dog line.
Don't. Put the dog, and even if you don't
or
say
the
the
shoes.
dog,
You want me to take my shoes off?
Yeah, you want to take my shoes off?
Do you,
or,
hey, whatever it is.
Is your cat gonna rip my face off with her claws? Like
exactly.
Oh, she might lick you to death.
Do you got extra food for me too? Like, and all of a sudden they're thinking, do I have extra food for you?
Yeah, it's
whatever it is. You ask them
you're
like
just confusing them. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. I'm glad we dove into that because I think for a lot of door-to-door guys, it's always hard for them to craft their transitions or to craft their pitch a little bit, and this gives them kind of a good basic step-by-step. That's cool.
So it's been like I guess my biggest thing too is just, I've read a lot of books, and from all the books I read, I just like, there's so many people that focus on these like traditional sales tactics, and it's like, maybe I'm just a skeptic. I just feel like people are catching on, and it's like when you go on the doors, I always teach my reps, be different. Like, the reason I'm not afraid to re-knock people's areas is because I know I'm better than them. Something about me is going to be different than them, and they're going to like me, and they're going to want to do business. So like, I'll pick up all the scraps. So it's like, just be different. And so like, even to the point where I've actually started doing something even different. When I get in the house, what do people say about the word change with sales? They always tell you not to say it, right? Don't say the word change. People don't like it. Every house I get in, I sit at the table, I look at their bill, and I say, okay, before I go through any of this, I need to know one thing. Are you afraid of change?
You just ask them.
Every time.
Afraid of change?
Every time. And they go like this. They go, and then I just say, not if it makes sense, right? Well, no.
And now that's the pre-frame to close them at the end.
Because not only do they, like, by them saying I am not afraid of change, what are they saying? Please sell me.
Yeah.
Just tell me what it is that you're changing.
Let's hypothetically say, okay, let's go the opposite. Yeah, I hate change.
You hate it? Like, absolutely?
Well, I'm not one to really mix it up all the time.
Well, of course not. Nobody is. Like, I get that. But the reason I'm sitting in your house, like, look, you get dish flyers in the mail all the time, right? They're probably on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, look, the only reason you haven't done it is it's not because that flyer isn't interesting to you. It's not because you don't think dish might be a good option. It's because you've never had somebody come and sit in your house able to explain it all to you and show you that it's actually going to be a better option. So look, at the end of this conversation, it's going to be me telling you change from cable to dish. But if I can't put you in a better situation than you were before I got here, if I can't make you understand that flyer is actually good, then I haven't done my job. But I promise you, you're going to want to. So let me show you. And hey.
And it shows I have no attachment. I need nothing from you.
I'm not the needy.
I'm not the needy. I'm the needy, or I'm the needed.
Yes.
And then, and I think people never. Okay, the biggest thing I feel like people miss when they're sitting down at a table is a pre-frame. Yeah. Meaning, I'm going to set up the conversation to where when I go through this 30-minute presentation, at the end, you already know my intention.
Yes.
Let's not beat around the bush. I'm a salesman.
Yes.
You're a customer. If I can't make this make sense, high five, see you later. If I can make this make sense, I'm going to ask you for the damn sell.
I straight up tell people sometimes, I'm like, look, I've done this for a really long time. I can tell you're probably someone that doesn't make snap decisions. But look, no disrespect to you, at the end of this conversation, I'm going to be telling you need to switch today from cable to dish. Now, if I'm able to show you have all the same channels, you're going to get better equipment, I'm going to lower your bill, is that going to be a problem? Because, again, no disrespect, I've already set up a ton of people. I know there's someone out there willing to make the decision. If you're not, I'm not going to do this for free. Like,
and that's where some sales guys get so attached to, I got in a house, it's the only house I'll get in today. Yeah. I'm done. Thank you, air conditioning.
It's the right way.
Yes. Yeah. I better not mess this one up.
It's like, dude, no, because you're being that way, the customer doesn't want to deal with you because they can feel that you're just like, you never want to be on that high or that low. You just want to keep it right in the middle, right? And the middle is your safe ground. That's just, hey, I don't need you, you need me. It's having them understand that I'm confident in what I do. I don't care if you do this or not, because if you don't, I know someone else is going to.
And I'm on to the next door, and I'm not wasting my time with you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of sales reps don't understand the time management factor of, if you sat in the guy's an hour in this house, and you wasted that whole time knowing from the get-go, there's a very small chance, because he's like very upfront with you, I won't buy anything.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let me give you a couple jabs, but if you're going to sit here and be such like a wall, it's like, move on.
Yeah, because it's like, I think these reps think that, oh, well, dude, it's okay, I'll be able to get it. And it's like, no, man, like, there's some people that just won't do it. And so it's so much better to just challenge them in the beginning, because half the time, people that won't do it, when they're challenged, they'll be like,
I'll do it.
I'll do it.
And then
you just flip the script on them. And it's like,
100%.
Dude, come on. So all these traditional sales tactics are the things that I hate. Like, when I go into a house, I don't care about the word change. Why? Because why should I be afraid of a word? Like, I'm challenging them. Every time I say it, I get the same reaction. No one wants to admit they don't have balls.
Yeah.
No one.
It's
So they're
awesome.
all, like, unless they're
I love
89 years old, they're not going to say yes.
Yeah.
They're always going to say, well, no. And then it's just like, okay, so
Cool.
let me show
Challenge
you.
accepted.
Yeah,
Let's
challenge,
go.
let's go. And then every time, like, literally just boom, boom. So anyway, I think the thing that kind of separates the way I train and me is, and a lot of the guys that have been with my trainings, I think they'll admit too, is it's different. Like, I want to train you guys to be different. I don't want you to be like every other salesman that's hit the door before you, because
They get 1,000 every year. Like,
they need that refresher. They need to have that person where you're sitting at the table and they're like, dude, I never talk to door-to-door salesmen, much less let them in my home. And by the way, what's your name? Like,
that's my favorite.
it's the best.
The best.
Is that not?
He's like, you're the only door-to-door
Yes.
in the last 15 years
Yes.
that I've ever let sit
You're
at my
the
table.
only one that's ever convinced my wife. How did you do it? I mean, I just was me. Like, I'm not Ian the salesman. I'm just Ian.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'm a sales rep. I'm brand new. I've bageled for the last 2 weeks. I suck. How do I be the not so needy versus the needed mentally, even though I suck?
So that's, first of all, I suck doesn't exist. Like, that's the first thing I want to
I know. I'm being like...
But I want to go into it. Because
Yeah.
I want people to understand. Because a lot of people are out there and they're like, man, I just suck. Or, man, this just isn't for me. Bull. The only reason you suck, or the only reason it isn't for you, I actually did a snap on this yesterday. I did a quick, like, snippet. It just, whatever, like, everyone is good at something, right? But the difference between the fact that they're good at that and they're good at this is the time they put into it. And I know that's cliche, but it's the truth. Like, I don't know how to play the guitar simply because I haven't spent hours and hours and hours to learn it, and I haven't watched YouTube videos, and I don't have the bleeding calluses on my fingers to, like, I haven't done what it takes to learn how to play the guitar like I have with sales. So anybody that doesn't know how to sell, oh my gosh, I did not just say that. I hate people that do that, dude. Anybody that doesn't, that thinks they suck at selling, it's because you haven't paid the price. You don't have the bleeding calluses yet. Like, go do what it freaking takes. Don't come home and play video games. Go home and study. Call your manager and pick their brain. Call the best. Like, do what it takes and you won't suck. But
it's funny because Chris Burgess in the podcast, I don't know if anybody's listened to that, he said, the first thing I'll ask a guy when he's really sucking is I say, what book are you reading? And if they can't answer that question, I simply go, there's your first problem.
Seriously.
Because your confidence level goes up when you start studying. You're like, I learned this new nugget today in this weird little book, and I'm going to go try it today.
And then
just
application.
It's just like...
I think everybody just, like, it's funny because people think that, because it's a summer sales thing, right? It's 4 months.
Like, why put so much time?
Everybody thinks it's this, like, soft skill that they're just going to pick up, and it's like, no, man, it's no different than anything else. You have to put the work in.
Okay.
So for your answer, I think the answer is go to work. Like, if you feel like you're sucking, then freaking change whatever you're doing. Stop playing video games. Stop watching movies. Don't waste time. Knock every hour you can. Practice with your conversations, and then on top of that, study after you get off the doors. And then I guess the only other advice I'd give is stop focusing. If you haven't been able to get a sale, stop focusing on getting the sale. Have you ever watched The Mask of Zorro?
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I actually love that movie, and it's something I use for training a lot when he's in the training circle. Antonio Banderas says, or Anthony Hopkins at the time says, he goes, this is all you know. The circle is all you know. Don't try to go out of it. Don't try to go get your revenge yet. You need to learn how to fight your sword first, right? So I always tell reps, if you haven't got a sale, stop focusing on getting a sale. Just focus on creating 5 good conversations. Once you've created 5 good conversations, focus on asking for the close at least once. If you didn't get the close and you got shut down, close them twice. If you get shut down then, close 3 times. Focus on the simple steps. Don't try to jump out of the circle too fast. Because, yeah, great, I want to put 1 up today. Okay, but if you come home with 0, how are you going to feel? It's just going to be a constant flow of negativity. Going back to the what creates negativity thing, right? It's the consistency in whatever you're doing that creates that positivity. And so your goal should be, at the end of the day, I want to feel accomplished. And if I get a sale, great. But if you constantly have that mentality, you'll get a sale. And you will start selling all the time.
100%.
So it's like, I think that's my advice. Go to work and focus on consistency in the little things. Not trying to do too much than you can. Like, if you're not selling, okay, focus on things it takes to get the sale instead of getting the sale.
Cool. I like that. So we gotta kind of wrap up this.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. We got a meeting.
And then you got a meeting to get to. I got people coming.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go into the lightning round, but I've started to do the lightning round much different than my generic bam 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 questions.
Okay.
So we're gonna play a game. It's called Things. We'll go into that. Okay.
Things.
All right. So I'm just gonna pick one of these cards. Okay. Things that will be launched at the 2025 Apple press conference.
2025 Apple press conference. 2025. That's not too far away. I was
First thing that comes to your mind.
I was gonna say like computer chips, like in our oh, my phone in my hand. Like, what's up, dude?
Your ring phones.
Yeah,
no
so
Apple phone.
Like we already have the watches.
Yeah,
like next is implants. Like we're straight
cool.
up robots.
Things you find funny that no one else seems to.
Oh shoot. Something I find funny that other people don't. Man, these are hard on the spot.
Just first thing that comes to your mind.
What's yours? You tell me yours.
No. You first thing that comes to your mind. Like midgets or whatever.
Midgets are pretty funny,
okay.
But everybody finds them funny. That's
so
the thing. I think most of the things I find funny, everybody else finds funny.
Okay, pass. Things you would like to say to contestants on The Bachelor.
Oh, don't get me started, dude. That's the guilty pleasure of every married couple.
Okay.
I want to tell every contestant on The Bachelor to stop being absolute, just straight retarded. Like, oh, I'm so in love with you. You've been on 2 freaking dates. Like, don't even tell me that. Anyway.
Okay.
We can go on for half an hour on that.
I know, I was like, it's a guilty pleasure.
Seriously.
Things that could cause the world to end.
Man, that's a deep one. I think failure in technology.
Things that are ripoffs.
Things that are ripoffs. Shoot.
Things you would have overheard.
I'm terrible thinking on the spot.
I know. I'm making think. Things you would have overheard at George Clooney's wedding. These are good.
Oh, these are so good. Something about Ocean's 11, maybe. Like, do you think actors talk about their movies?
Oh, guaranteed.
Like,
hey, remember that behind the scenes? Yeah. So
remember that time that?
Too bad they didn't put that part in.
You remember that time the Asian dude that was doing flips around, like, accidentally flipped over the box and broke his arm?
Yeah, exactly. It's like never made the movie.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, last one. Things you shouldn't name your sports franchise.
You shouldn't name your sports franchise. First thing that came to mind was like the Sloths.
The
That
Sloths.
would be terrible.
It's like
Can you imagine?
We're the
We're going up
Sloths!
against the Sloths today.
That's awesome. Okay, so I appreciate you being on this, man. It's fun, and hopefully we'll start to see a lot more Ian Wendt in these trainings and collaborations. So
fun.
This will be cool. And Door we'll collaborate there. And just for everybody that's listening, like Ian probably will start to play a little bit of more of a training role in Can't Knock This and start to collaborate ideas. And because you've done a phenomenal job at like putting a platform and systemizing it and building training manuals, and that's what really we're trying to go accomplish with Can't Knock This. So
it'll be fun, man.
I'm excited. This will be awesome.
For
so
sure.
Everybody that listens to this, share it on Facebook, tag Can't Knock This, and let's go blow this up. I appreciate it.